Okay, Michelle, it's so exciting to have you with us. Thank you very, very much for making time today. I know it's there's a lot on your plate, and really appreciate you making time to share your journey with me and with other women who are, figuring out their leadership, figuring out their walk. So, I will tell a little bit of the story about how you and I met. I was recently a friend of mine, Molly, who did some training for myself and our team, and she just went above and beyond, and it wasn't anything that we expected. And I think it might have been January 2nd, January 3rd, something like that. Was definitely very much during the holidays. And I Googled like gift baskets and trying to find something because Molly travels all the time. I was like, oh, I better not send her flowers. She may not get them. And found you, and then you popped up and answered the phone, and I think I don't know exactly what time it is, but if you close at 6, it was like 5:55. If you close at 5, it
Mhm.
might be 4:55, and, you picked up the phone, and it was one of those moments where I really felt like I was having a divine date. I knew that, I had been led to you and that, it was gonna be the beginning of a much bigger conversation, and then, of course, you completely blew me away and blew Molly away with your generosity and the beautiful gift you created for her, and, so here we are. And so,
Yay.
as learning more about you, learning more about your journey as a woman-owned business, I wanted to share you in all your magnificence. So, if I can start a little bit with you, just with questions about what catalyzed this, and I think I would take this even maybe a little bit before the loss of your husband. Thinking about when did you know that you had these kind of superpowers around gifts and experience and expression and all the good things that you know how to do. Tell me kind of where did you know kind of before, and then lead us through the journey of what brought you to today.
Mhm. Those are great. Great questions, Laura. It's great being here with you and talking with you and just reading about your story as well. So thank you for having me on here. I think I don't even want to say that I had creativity in the background. It's something you just do and you're not really thinking about it. Today it's more celebrated than it was back when I was young. I remember making every single ornament that went on my Christmas tree when my children was little, and I just love doing that. I like piddling around. I'm not a big crafter in terms of everyone see what I do. I didn't do that. I just like making cards. I like sending thank yous. And definitely one of my love languages is gift giving. So
Mm,
this
lovely.
fell into that space in my heart that was there. I didn't even know was really there. Um, and so prior to me losing my spouse, I was running a nonprofit feeding the working poor as
Mm.
well as counseling. And I worked on the nonprofit side. So I didn't even understand. I was sharing with somebody earlier. When you read in the Bible the word simple-minded, that would have been me. Very educated, but I was simple-minded. Like I didn't
Yeah.
understand nonprofit means no profit. And so
Hmm.
I just would give everything away. So
Yeah.
prior to him passing, it was just that part of me that likes to give. And then I'll just work with my hands. I've made quilts for my grandchildren and I have two more left to go. And I just like doing that. I like giving.
I love that you're making quilts. My grandmother was really one of my great mentors. And before she passed, she made a quilt for myself and for each of my children. And it was one of my most precious treasures
Oh my
today.
gosh.
Just really is such a gift. So I'm so glad you're doing that. So
Yeah.
glad. So tell us a little bit about what happened, if you don't mind, about your husband. And it
Sure.
was sudden, if I remember correctly.
Well, it was unexpected more than sudden. I
Mm.
think because he was diagnosed with cancer in 2012. And just a little history, I was a pastor's wife for many years, homeschooling my children, supportive of his dream and his vision. I didn't necessarily have one. I'm very value and mission oriented, but
Right.
I was supporting him in his endeavor. And so with 2012, I was counseling a doctor and his wife, and he asked the doctor to look at a spot on his arm. And he went into the doctor and found that he was stage 3 melanoma.
Hmm.
I had no idea what that was, and
Right.
I did the research and looked everything up, trying to figure out what was going on. And then when he went into surgery to get that taken care of and started having some scans, and they found that he had 4 or 5 tumors on the inside of his chest area as well as under his arm.
Yeah.
As soon as they did that surgery, took that out, it spread to the rest of his body over the next year or two and went to stage 4 within 30 days. So you're kind of faced with, oh my gosh, what's happening? My life is turning upside down. Now I'm adding more stress to that because now we're dealing with a terrible diagnosis and then health issues. And so fast forward to 2014, he had a saddle pulmonary embolism in April of 2014 and passed away 3 weeks later. That was a little unexpected for sure. I knew he wasn't doing well, but I actually thought he would get back up and move. I never thought I'd be a widow at 50. And
Mm.
so, what do you do with a pastor's wife who hasn't worked for many, many years? And I was in corporate America when I was younger, but now my life and my vision and my values had changed 100%. And I still had children at home. So, continued on with the nonprofit just for a year. So, the next May closed down the nonprofit. And now I was a little depressed and a little discouraged because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then I also handed money over to a financial advisor and lost thousands of dollars on that decision because I just didn't know
Yeah.
what any of this. I trusted everyone and I didn't know anything. So I thought I'd taken care of children, I'd taken care of the poor, but I forgot about the widows.
Mhm.
I would meet widows in the church. And to be quite honest, to my shame, I didn't know where they were coming from. And I just
Well, how
was
could you? I mean, like, how could you? We know what we know, right? I mean, really,
yeah,
just
until you're walking in it, I
yeah.
mean, it's, very difficult. So I thought my whole identity changed. Like I was no longer a wife, no longer a pastor's wife, no longer running a nonprofit. I was becoming an empty nester very quick. All my kids were heading out. And
Mhm.
here I was faced with life and lack of knowledge 100%. So that started my journey of self-education. I had 2 master's degrees at this point, but still, when I say simple-minded, that's exactly what was happening. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know
Yeah, well, they don't really teach you that part in school, right? I think about,
theory.
so many of the women in our community that are highly educated, really smart, and really great at what they do. I tend to move very fast. So I always say we're not the type A's, we're the triple A's. We're the ones that are doing all the things that other people say can't be done. Well, other people are over there complaining about stuff, we're over here doing it, right? So very smart women. And where do you get the resources? And so much more exists today than it did back then, right? And we were talking about, a decade ago. Where do you get the resources, especially without any kind of structure to
Right.
know focus? Yeah.
Well,
What
I thought
what worked for you?
finance was a problem because I didn't understand it too well, and number 2, I had no idea how to do anything. The world had changed in the past 15 years. Everything had changed. Marketing was no longer, outbound, it's inbound. There's all kinds of things that, like you said, that have changed. So, because I lost money in the decision that I made, I didn't want to be a victim. So, I'm going to learn how to manage what I have and grow. And one of my sons came over, taught me how to pay bills online. I just went there.
List of children.
Why
Yeah.
why are there investors? Why does somebody buy gold? Why would you go in this direction or that direction? And I hired a finance coach and I said, I need help. I don't know what to do. During that same time, these were 2 roads that I wasn't sure which one I was heading down because I really had no clue. I was telling you earlier, I had just enough light for the step I was on. So I had no thought about what am I going to do in the future, but I'm very much a B type personality, very easygoing. I
Mm,
had to start learning to live in details and
mm,
things that and as a creative, so a little can be easily distracted at times during
yeah.
that time. Then also widow's brain fog, and there was a lot going on. So I thought, gosh,
How
how
many children remind me again how many children you have?
well, I have 3 biological sons. I had 7 at the time because my husband's first wife passed away from the same cancer. So I was
Really?
homeschooling all 7. Yeah,
Wow. God bless your
yeah.
children.
And then they were growing up and moving out and moving on. So
Yeah.
the the group started to shrink,
Mhm.
but I was still, schooling them as well. So I wanted to get them launched. That was a real important thing for me. So when I hired this finance coach, he said, why don't you go back into counseling? And I thought, I don't want to go back into counseling because you're dealing with pathology and other issues, and I don't want to do that. And so, at that same time, 2 people, or yeah, there was a couple that was in the nonprofit volunteering, and they said, Michelle, why don't you come interview with us? We have a really good job for you. And it was to be a CEO of another of a larger business, and I that was not my dream, but I went because I needed to create income for
Sure,
myself.
it might have been the next step, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
So I'm sitting there and the gentleman is telling me, you're going to, this is a 7 day a week work schedule. You're going to work 60 hours plus. We're a 5-star company. So you have to keep that up. You basically have to be up 24, you have to be on call 24 hours a day.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I just got tunnel vision. And I thought, how am I going to fulfill this person's mission, which rightfully I should, when I have a mission struggling at home? I've got children and grandchildren, and my heart was really there. So
yeah.
on my way home from that interview, I thought, is there any way I could start a business where women could work for themselves when they wanted and could versus had to? So I didn't have the idea yet for my business. I
I
just
would say, like, we do our best, and then, like,
something
we're
will
on
happen.
we're kind of on a need to know basis, right? We take the
Yeah,
step. That I love, this is gonna be one of my favorite quotes from this podcast. I had just enough light for the next step,
yep,
or the
the
step
step I'm
you're on,
on.
the step that you're on, right? So you're like, okay, I can see this, and I'm gonna
Yep.
take that step because action changes everything. And then I'm gonna get the light for the next step. Yeah.
So that's basically how it was. I'm driving home and then I thought Uber's doing well. I wonder if I could do an Uber type business. And it really wasn't popular back then. This was 8.5 years ago. And
Yes.
so when I got back home, I told my kids about it. And one of my sons said, "Hey, mom, you had a gift basket business when you were younger. Why don't you start that again?" And I said, I wonder if I could do that and work remote
Mm,
and train others to work remote. And so the women around me, especially one of my daughter-in-laws, just jumped right on it. It was amazing support,
nice.
especially in the beginning. She's still a support, but back then, huge, and a couple of other women, and they loved the idea. So I started my gift business and I made every single mistake possible. I love to hear
Are
people
you
talk
sure?
about their, road to success. And mine was definitely not the straight and narrow path. It was very crooked, but I learned from a lot at that point. So I started growing that. And at the same time, that second path on finance. So I began to educate myself on finance, created a practical class for widows
Mm,
and divorcees, but widows specifically. How do you create a new vision for yourself? How do you have a new mission statement? How do you manage your finances? So it's a practical bridge on the personal side of money, on
mhm,
how to now go to an advisor. What are the
mm.
questions I should ask? What's a good fit for me? Because everyone's financial language is a little different. How is it going to work? So I created that class. I was hired by an advisor at the time, but Nifty, my business kept growing. But in order for it to grow, I needed to be self-sustaining. So I did work for an advisor and became a finance coach myself, became a grief
Cool.
coach, and then became a certified financial transitionist, which is exactly what I was just describing. It's a bridge for
Oh, I didn't even know this is like an education for me, because often we talk, we are the underlying mission that I'm aware of with our work is around healing the poverty consciousness of women business leaders so that they can join us in actually healing physical poverty, right? Moving resources. And
right.
it and because that's my, underlying understanding of the mission of Limitless Women, it tends to attract a lot of money healers, right? I always say I don't want to talk about money. It's not about the money, but because we equate money and poverty, there's a link there. So I have not heard what you just said, which was a certified financial
Financial
transitionist.
transitionist. It's an
That is so
actual
cool.
designation that most advisors should get because it really
Yeah.
specifically deals with sudden money
So
when you
good.
don't know how to handle it. So we tend to think we're invincible and make a lot of mistakes. Uh,
Yeah.
but I became certified in that because of my education and my background, and that is a great designation to have. But
Awesome.
when I watched the advisor, I thought, I don't want that for my future. That's not me. And Nifty is growing so well, and I love the creative side. But
So was Nifty kind of like a nights and weekends? How are you fitting that
no,
in with
it was
this?
every day, but I had a team working on it, so I didn't have to physically be there.
Nice.
They could be doing the work because a lot of them were remote while
Yeah.
I was working in the financial services side. And the gentleman I worked for was hoping I'd take over his business, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. And during that time, I want to say 2018, every morning I'm up seeking the Lord. Faith
Mm,
is my main foundation, 100%. So I'm praying and I'm looking outside my window. This is when the gift wrapping side started. So I'm looking out my window and I think my van is sitting there. It's taking up space. I don't use it all the time. I use it for deliveries and things and for picking up supplies, but I could use that more. And every day I would be praying, Lord, what is your will? Where do you want me to go? What would be a good fit for you? And it was really difficult because I came out of ministry and now I'm in a for-profit, and I have no idea how to ask for money, and I had to learn a lot of skills in order to not be so afraid because I was terrified. So, just terrified to get out in public, drive my car. It was really dumb, but it's something that a lot of widows do experience. So I thought, gosh, I already make gifts. I wonder if I could wrap gifts. And
Mhm.
there's the mobile site. I could drive around and wrap gifts. So I put up a page of mobile gift wrapping. And within a week, one of my clients, current clients, said, could you come and wrap all my gifts? I made several mistakes, learned another business skill from that.
Right, right.
Then in 2019, moving into 2019, that went on my Instagram. We had a baby Instagram. So I always tell everybody, don't be afraid to start small. It's all
Right,
good.
right.
Start
There's
small.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yep. And so I got a call in, I want to say maybe February to do a big product launch for Too Faced Cosmetics and a gift wrap design. So we did that. That went over incredibly well, very fun. First large scale project we did. And then so we're in 2019. Then in August of 2019, I got a call from the Kardashian estate manager asking if I would create some design. So my team went out there. First of all, I didn't know who they were. I did a search, a little bit of a flash. And then my children, my sons said, Mom, they are number two influencers under Trump. You've got to go out there.
Wow.
So the team and I went out there, and Kim didn't like anything I had done. So I walk outside and I thought, so this is where my mindset changed a little bit.
Okay.
Um, I heard you use the word in one of your podcasts, sexy business. I love that. I even made a note because I thought, you almost can't be afraid anymore because you've already faced so many other problems. This is like a
Yeah.
piece of cake. I walk outside, I'm like, Lord, if you brought me here, you're going to give me an answer.
Wow.
I'm not going all the way back home. Everyone's watching me. The team is watching me, the Kardashians, Kanye West, all these people watching what we're doing. I walked back in there and I just said, does anyone have any fabric? And one of the gals said, I have some fabric. So I did a Japanese wrap. And Kim said, I love that. So we wrapped
Awesome.
all their holiday gifts in.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that was the beginning of a lot of celebrity work. And then the
Well,
pandemic
I
hit.
just I wanna pause here because
Yeah.
I do follow the Kardashians, not devoutly, if you will, but I so appreciate their journey, right? I so from a
Yes.
business perspective,
Yes.
and also feeling like a little bit like I've watched those children grow up as my children have grown up. They're very similar in ages, and I think about, Chris being such an incredible, uh,
Brand manager,
oh,
right?
so many things. She's incredible at a lot of things, but I'll say this piece is it's been my understanding with Kim that one of her superpowers has been her she has a beautiful talent around aesthetics. So when you could make her happy because it seems like she has a very high standard for herself and everybody around her. I just think that that's really, she's probably not the easiest person to satisfy when it comes to aesthetics. She has a really high standard for design. So that's awesome.
Wow.
Kudos to you. Yeah,
That was very
I think that
cool.
story really tells something about the caliber of what you're bringing and experience. And we have at our own company, you keep talking about mission and values. Another reason I love you. I loved you the minute I talked to you. I was like, I knew this was going to even be better than I thought it would be. I did a training in the fall when I was just coming back to work, right after being off for a while for my medical sabbatical. And one of the things I said is, ladies, your messaging is not landing because you're not leading with your mission, right? And the whole idea that someday when I get big enough, I'm going to create culture and core values and mission and vision is backwards.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing we face all the time in philanthropy, because we work as a philanthropy first company that's a private sector company. But what we know is that giving causes growing. So our first dollars go, then the rest will take care of itself, right? It's a principle that is familiar to those of us that are followers, right? For those of us that are believers, but it's not the only way you would know about that, right? As you learn that giving causes growing is what's first, right? So first for us is the dollars that come in go, then what we know is that if we stay on track, and this is what I'm hearing from you again and again, Michelle, if we stay on track with our values, we stay on track with our mission, if we really allow ourselves to be led to the next step and walk in faith, everything we need is being provided, right? And often, I don't know if you ever thought you were going to work with the Kardashians, but often, in my experience, so much bigger than I could have imagined. Not anything I could have imagined, right? God always takes me to a plan that's bigger than my own.
Yep, and I think you're 100%, and I think the whole thought on the mission and living by your mission is huge, and I don't think people realize, or your values and your mission, how important those are in your decisions that you make every day, and the decisions that you make every day actually support your true value system.
Mhm.
So, me as a person, I have very strong values, and then us as a business as well. So, every year we go back to our core values and we ask, are we living by those?
Excellent. I
I don't
literally had this conversation
be,
today.
I don't want to be a company. And if young people complain, this is what they complain about. The company might state their core values as this, but they don't live by that core value
And
in their
the evidence is in the
business.
action, like the actions that the company takes, the actions that we take as individual is the validation of what we're saying that we believe, but our actions are the proof, right? Like that's the piece, right?
Yep, that's it. And so, anyway, that was when we walked into the pandemic. We were continuing to grow already. We were in different states, so we're the number one mobile gift wrapping business in the U.S.
So cool.
And my goal was to give other women an opportunity to work and fulfill exactly what I said in the very beginning,
Mhm.
which they work when they can and want to versus have to. So I currently have an absolutely incredible team. We are licensing so other people can actually grow a mobile gift wrapping business that's successful.
Fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
I said to you earlier, we were going to franchise, but I don't believe that's going to be the case. Licensing is really going to be our best fit, and coaching. And I train other women. So that's kind of how we got to where we are. And the goal is to continue to grow because we're in a space that's not, our competitors are more like country wine gift baskets. Well, we're a luxury gift basket and, we're more high end. And if we're going to do a smaller gift, we just want to do it really well. And we teach people how to gift, like how we want to know who you're gifting to, what's the purpose behind it, making sure the wrap is branded with the company or client's, information. But that's how Nifty got started, actually. So, yeah.
Well,
So,
I think, some of the things that I heard that I think are important for listeners to take away from that, to remember in their own businesses is this idea that often what you think is not really a business, could be a business, right? The whole idea that you enjoyed that, you enjoyed wrapping gifts. We often say in our house, like at the holidays, the wrapping is more important than the present. So I'll give my kids underwear and socks. I might introduce on the phone, but I'll spend hours, like literally. Like my whole office is like there's
yeah.
paper, and they all bring me their gifts to wrap. They're like, okay, they come over early and drop them all off so I can do that. It's my pleasure, just such a joy to think that that could be a business for something that you enjoy
Yeah.
doing already is important. I think there's some wisdom in that versus when you were invited to say, okay, well, I could take over this financial business or this, the person that we were working with. There wasn't anything wrong with that, but it wasn't really the joy. And I love that it's so aligned with, you know, um, it's kind of this idea that success leaves clues. If we look at your story, Michelle, and we look at the history of being a giver and working in nonprofit and then working as a minister's wife and then doing the things that you were doing to contribute to others, it's not a new concept for you. Limitless Women grew out of, you had asked me this earlier, it grew out of answering the invitations. The invitations kept showing up. And while I was building all of our private sector businesses over the years, right, I married into a family business, and we had a restaurant, then we had another restaurant, another restaurant, one thing gave birth to the next. It was just kind of like that one thing led to 9 businesses, now number 10, because I'm in the process of opening a yoga studio.
Mhm.
One gave birth to the next one. What's important in that kind of through line is you take yourself wherever you go. So your ability to be a faithful woman and to really bring your attention to detail, your care, your mission, the way you value people is what I hear. When I called you and you said, "Tell me about Molly. What does she love? What's her thing?" And I was like, I think she loves purple. Like I just, I was trying to think of like what would make it great for her. So when you put together this beautiful gift, just especially made for her, and then the piece of, like handwritten cards, like there's all these things that you do in our company in Limitless Women. One of our core values, the first one at the top, is love is in the details. We
Yeah.
really believe that people feel honored when they're attended to, and that matters. The people matter. All
I,
people
I,
matter. So
I agree
uh,
100%. People
yeah,
matter.
so
And,
resonant. So
you
resonant.
know,
So you're discovering, and this is kind of when you do a little business conversation here for a second, because you're discovering, and I love this because this has also been a part of my own journey of having sold 6 of our companies over the years, where to take it. So certain things you take and you decide to continue to scale. What you're looking at is, does it make more sense to franchise, licensing, certification? I mean, there's so many different community building. There, probably because my background is legal, I think about protecting your intellectual property, your signature systems, the way you do things, your trademarks. I mean, all of those things are a journey for all of us. It's not like anybody just comes out of the hopper knowing how to do this stuff, right? It's like you're in that, and that I'm going to say it again. Let's see if I get it right this time. The light is shown on the step you're on. Did I get it
yeah,
right this
just
time?
enough light for the step that you're on.
Yes. And so, how do we continue to be with that? Pray to be shown what would be in the highest and best. And then one of my girlfriends, Myoshia, said to me once, she was like, I was talking about my daily prayer to be shown. And she said, I encourage you. She said, I invite you to pray to be obedient. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm a little, I don't think I want that one. Yeah, I like the gratitude. I'm all good with all that. But
Yeah.
oh, I don't
That's so good because I was on my walk this morning and I was thinking about us talking today and I
yeah,
thought, I mean, there's quite a few things that are would be important for women to know, especially because I started this business after 50. So, and I'm a boomer, I'm a tail end of a boomer. And right now, that is the big thing. I am just so for women over 50 starting a business and not being
love it.
afraid and just do it, even if you are afraid. And there might be this silver tsunami, but let's ride the tsunami and not get buried underneath the bit. But the
Yeah.
words I was thinking of today were trust and obey because,
Mm,
when I was younger, I was very foolish. And as I grew older, the Proverbs 14:1 says, the wise woman. So I did a study on that, and it's the wise woman builds. And we just can build small every day, but keep
yes.
building. And so if you trust and obey, just like the simple song says, there's
Mhm.
no other way, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's just so trust and obey is correct.
Well, and I think it's that there's also this place, we have evidence when someone meets me. I always joke about this. I've yet to have somebody call me up and say, "Hey, would you help me with my poverty consciousness?" It just doesn't come, right? What they say is, I'm not as far along as I'd like to be. Again, the evidence is not showing up. I've got a business, it's generating revenue, but we're not highly profitable. And I'm a little embarrassed by that. It looks good, but it's not actually, we're not seeing the profit. That's one of the evidences. It's almost like a symptom that something's not working underneath. The other symptom is there's not enough time. And here's the deal. I mean, all of us that have had any kind of, the blessedness to be here at this age of life, and we've all had our wake up calls along the way. What we do with our time is everything. And so making time for the Lord, making time for yourself, making time for your family, that I always encourage my girlfriends to do that first.
Yeah.
Build your business around your life. Don't build your life around your business because it's a slippery slope, especially
And you won't.
your passion. So I love when you said this earlier about kind of the idea with mobile gift wrap as a business opportunity for a woman who's like you and I, who just loves and loves to do this, to work when she wants, how she wants, and not to feel like she has to do it, right? I mean, there's a way to be highly profitable and successful and find sufficiency for yourself so that you can give to others, right? That's just, I'm sure, again, anybody who's listening to my world is in that paradigm, but we have to take care of ourselves first, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that walking in the morning, even if it's misty, right? Having your conversations with God, understanding the power of trust and obey. Just really beautiful, really
Yeah,
beautiful.
and I think, I was listening to one of your other podcasts and everyone is talking about creating a high dollar, business, and I agree 100%. I used to not think that way, and I have had to learn that it's okay to want to be successful, but I definitely want to inspire those who have an interest, even if it's just making an extra $500 a month
Yes.
to start. And if you once you can skill behind that, then you can continue to grow. And there was a time like 2022 was a very rough year for me financially because I didn't incorporate the cost of goods sold. That
Mm,
there was an increase at 35%, and then there was an increase on shipping 30%. All of us in the product space probably experienced a little bit of that. And I thought, what is wrong with me? But it was also back to that step and a light on the step that this was my time to grow up and mature as a business owner. Go and find any of the flaws. I was very transparent with my team, and we all began to really make sure we had a profit mindset. And they were constantly helping me as well. So we worked as a team
excellent.
to regain that and then doubled the business this last year. So I think don't give up, even if it's a struggle. Don't, educate yourself. There is so much, like you and I were talking about earlier, so much free information.
Mhm.
You can start there and then invest when you need to invest.
Yeah. Well, I
And
would
it
say,
can
from my experience, we created, I had a mentor who told me that, because we built this business for many years. We do free stuff. We love free. We love to give, right? We are a community of givers. It's at the heart of everything we do, as I think is in lots of our videos. Um, and so we are, I think, 8 years of giving away free gifts on Fridays. You just gift, gift, gift. Must be our love language too, right? So we're doing that.
Yes.
And then having business partnerships. And I love, like, there's a lot of people in our industry and consulting and mentorship programs and coaching programs that don't want to work one on one. They just want the value of groups and scale. And I say, there's nothing like intimacy
Oh my
for
gosh.
healing.
Just the time with
Nothing
you
like this
talking.
one-on-one
Right.
conversation to really get to the heart of what's on somebody's vision, like what's going on and why are they being called this way. And I think that that's where the real work happens. So everything we do is, again, very intimate and safe for women. What I'm curious about for you is how transparent were you before you saw that wait a second, we're out of whack here numbers wise. How transparent were you before? Because what I heard you say is you got transparent and invited the team to engage in creating a solution. That feels like a fabulous leadership tenet I want to know more about.
Yeah, well, before the issue was we were constantly growing and doing well and profitable.
Mhm.
So there's a book by Michael Gerber who he does the, E-Myth,
Mhm.
but he had one for the CFO.
Mm.
And so I read that book maybe 3 times. I'm very big on re-listening, rereading, all of that. And in one of his statements, and prior to this, I didn't understand this until 2022, but I was managing my money. The Bible also tells us to know the state of your flocks. So I did that. I have my bookkeepers, I have my accountant, all of that. But he said, if you don't know how you got where you are profitably, and how where you if you failed, if you don't know how you got there, you're being impertinent. And when
Mhm.
I heard that, I that was a wake-up call. I don't know how I did well.
Mhm.
That was the thing. So it wasn't an issue of being not being transparent. It was an issue of just not realizing how I was growing and why there was success.
Well,
So
the personal responsibility about pausing to evaluate that. I mean, I feel like when I had this car accident, and if anybody's listening who's new to me, I was in a head-on collision. I fell asleep at the wheel. Thank
gosh,
you,
it's
God,
crazy.
it didn't hurt anyone. And my body was hurting. I just wasn't aware of a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes. But I feel like I knew when I came out of the car, Michelle. It's interesting because the sheriff pulled me out and he said, I don't know why you're alive right now. In this set of circumstances, at this left turn into traffic, 60 miles an hour, he said, normally I'm doing CPR. And it came out of my mouth like at that moment, I just said, God's not done with me yet.
That's
And I know that. I know that if I'm alive and breathing, God's not done with me yet. And I went home and I was pretty shook up and a little bit of concussion, but I knew there was something more, not because I was looking for meaning necessarily, but there was something that I needed to pay attention to. And it really did. It took me down this. And the fact that I was able to have the surgeries that I've had, I think I told you I had 4 surgeries over the course of 7 months in the last year and a half. So it was March of 2020. free. That to have the luxury to be tuned up, to be living in the United States and have access to amazing medical care and to be able to request these things. And it took years. It took years for me to get the doctors. It took years to get on the journey. It took a year to heal after the journey. I'm not saying it was an overnight sensation, but I'm aware of the blessing and the luxury of being in a position to ask for help, to get the help that I needed, to be tuned up and say, "Okay, Lord, now what would you have me do? You've
Right.
made me pretty bionic. I've got a computer on my chest. I've got titanium in my back. Where would you have me go with this new strength?" The perspective is everything. I love your perspective on how things are happening for you instead of what you said
Against you,
before,
right?
like your identity changing and you choosing right off the bat, "I'm not a victim in here. What is this next step?"
Yes, because if you do that, then you take all that control
Mhm.
away from yourself to where, okay, maybe things happen to you, and I have quite a childhood story, but maybe things happen to you, but they don't happen to you against you, they happen for you.
Right.
And you use that as part of your story. And without the pieces to my story, I wouldn't be who I am today. It doesn't mean we don't like them or we have to like them. It just means, okay, how am I gonna resolve this and move forward? And then how can I help others? And my main purpose in life. I mean, just going back to Nifty on the gift side, the
Mm,
goal of the company, every person, the 50 gals that work outside of the state of California, our goal is to bring joy to our client and then their recipient. So we get to
mhm,
bring joy. And that is the goal of Nifty. So we have our core values, we know what we're doing, but what is the outcome we want? And that outcome is
love
joy,
that.
but can we be profitable by bringing joy? And that's
100%.
the business side of it. But, and just going back to what you said, being a generous giver first, and all of us at Nifty, especially the team, we always go over and above what's called. And that's our inside, that's one of our major core values is generosity. And that not only means time, but it means, what we put in the gift. Is it more than what they're asking for? Is it better than what they think? Like all
Mhm.
those things.
Yes,
But
yes.
can we bring joy? And, talking to the team, all of us, when we're out getting ready, prepping for holiday, when it's October, we've had a really rough several years in the United States of America. So I said, how nice is it for you to have a big smile on your face and, music in the background? Because we work in corporates, like they hire us to do their staff gifts or whatever. They'll bring us in. So we have everything is set up really cool and beautiful. And we have some music playing and some of the girls sing. So they sing. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. I
You
get
get
to
to
be in
give.
a
You get to be
business.
in that generosity. You get to be in
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that generosity soup.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine being in another job because this is so rewarding. It's just a blessing. So I last year I gave myself I made the decision that if I can't make it work this year, then do I need to close Nifty? Because it's expensive to have a business like what we do. So
Product-based, much more usually, again, margins are much tighter for people that are not familiar with that. Product-based business has a much tight we used to own a winery. A product-based business is
right.
tighter than a service-based business usually. Yes.
Yes. So we were able to turn it around and double the business this year and become profitable. So it's like, it was really a blessing. So and it just taught me to be better as a leader and
Yeah.
business owner and yeah.
I
So
think, when before we started this, I asked you, I have 2 questions left for you. And one and I'm trying to figure out what the right order of this is. You might just answer. I might just ask both of them and let you go with them as you would. One was I asked you before this, kind of what's your plan as I came back to work and said, okay, I'm going to renew my vows and really re-engage with my business and my mission and look at what does it look like for the next 10 years for me. I'd love to know a little bit about where you see that is one piece. And then I think we'll wrap up with some leadership tenets because I feel like you have so many things that you are really talented as a leader. You have so many tenets you bring. And I'd like for some women to know what are the easy steps they can start, wherever they are right now. But let's talk first about kind of where Nifty's going, over the next 10 years. What do you see happening there?
yes, I would say, doubling our business again. And actually even bigger than that for 10 years. If you're talking 10 years,
Yeah.
moving into a different facility, we have several. shops right now, but we want a very large one so we can house everything because we have a couple of different locations because it's very costly in Southern California. So we're being very creative, very resourceful. Number 2, I'd love to have, at least 2 to 300 licensees out there. Those are
Excellent.
people who are able to gift wrap and mobile gift wrap, and then as that grows, they can start to do baskets and other things, but under the Nifty brand,
Love it.
so that they have a system in place. So it's not a franchise. Franchises can be very costly for the franchisee, and
Mhm.
it can be very costly for the franchisor.
Right.
So I have taken 3.5 years to study this, and I
Excellent.
feel like the risk might be too high for the season we're in the nation and the state of California. So yeah, licensing and then growing the gift side. So it's really two separate businesses, and the coaching, my personal brand is my desire. I want to really grow my personal brand, and that is to really work with other women who are very similar to what you're doing, coaching them on they don't have to have a super large business, but just start and launch just to do something to create income on the
100%.
side, you know?
100%. Yeah,
Uh,
well, I feel like, and, I'm kind of listening and watching you from the outside, and what I see is it's not 2 different things. There's an integration that's gonna come for you right now in this conversation. Hopefully, it's supporting of this for you, but, again, your vision is your vision. Let me not put my spin on this, but I
no, go
do
right
think
ahead.
value well, there's some value in all that you already learned around finance, financial freedom, financial independence, all the training that you've had there, your own journey, being a widow, having young children at home, like everything is lined up to put you in the perfect place. What I see with Nifty is this opportunity for women to have. There's a phrase that gets thrown around too much, the business in a box idea, but the idea for them to actually have a formula, a proven concept that's something that they can adopt easily at home. And they don't have to change, the big imposter syndrome that comes in for us as women is, am I really ready? Who am I to do this? The voices in our head, right? When we don't allow ourselves to be supported and loved. When we have that, it can feel overwhelming. What I'm hearing from you is that this is a way for women to get started with a low investment versus buying $100,000 franchise,
Right.
and wherever they are in the country, and probably eventually multiple countries if you're not already there, this is a great opportunity for them to get started. And it's not, I'm going to sell lotions and potions for somebody else. It's like, I'm going to bring my own creative expression to my particular. I often, when I speak for organizations that have multiple chapters, I'll use this as an example, right? Like, I'm going to speak at a chapter in New Jersey. I often will have the values of the organization that I'm there to, or the association to represent, but the culture in New Jersey feels a little different than the culture in Orange County, right?
Yeah.
Or in
Yes.
Dallas, Texas. It might be a little different than it is when I'm up in Red Deer, Alberta, right? In a little small, town up there. So it's interesting how what I see with Nifty is this opportunity for women to find financial sufficiency, do it when they want, how they want, and not have to figure out how to invent the wheel because you've done all the hard work. So
Right.
they can be connecting with you, which we're going to make sure they know how to do that in this podcast, to have a conversation to say, hey, let me raise my hand and have a conversation. That's the place, Michelle. Is like, that's where we change as women. And when we actually take the action step, we look at, okay, let me just ask and see what happens here. Let me get my ask on, see what happens. You'll know because your core values are so strong whether a person is in alignment with your company's business model. Can they make it work? Because you won't let them come in if they want to. Be like,
Right.
let's replace them,
Yeah,
right?
I had to learn that, and that's such a great point.
Me too.
It's like they have to interview you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Do you want them to
100%.
fit your culture? And we actually had to say no to someone. So that's such a great point to not be afraid of that. Gosh, I would just be so afraid of everything. And it's like, man, you learn through your difficulties to just keep moving forward. Learn how could I be better at that? What could I change there? Because
Yeah.
and afraid to make mistakes, and we just don't want to do that. But
Well, and
that's
I would say this
thank
is
you.
another thing too, when you're saying I loved what you said about women over the age of 50, because I was literally just speaking about this to somebody yesterday. We are a mature audience, and I think it's predominantly because I'm a mature person, but it has a lot to do with the fact that the conversation around purpose and impact and philanthropy is not always present for a young woman when she's in her 20s and 30s and popping out babies and trying to figure out, how to manage that lifestyle, right? There's a lot going on there when we've been blessed to have our experiences of our families and now in a season of life with a little more freedom, a little more luxury in our time and get to choose this. I think this is a perfect business model for a woman who is mature and maybe an empty nester. I mean, it just seems like such a no-brainer. It just seems like it would be so natural.
Right. I have a gal that's working with me right now. She's 65 and she's been in corporate America for a long time. And her husband's a little older than her.
Yeah,
She's like, Jill, I don't want to do this anymore. I just am so excited about the mobile gift wrapping because
so fun.
it grows into other things. You're not just wrapping during holidays, you're wrapping all year long. And it's just it's a fun thing to do. And you can use your hands and you can learn it. These are skill sets that you learn through our coaching program as well. So
Yeah.
you'll learn how to market, you learn how to sell, you learn how to do it scared, you know?
Well,
Some
and your
that's
capacity will increase, and that's kind of where the place where I was gonna go and maybe wrap up with this here about this idea of who we be. I love that you brought up identity in the beginning of this because it's really one of the things that we see happen in Limitless Women again and again when we really know we're on track is that we take a woman who is self-employed, great at what she does, but she's doing the do, right? And we help her step into an identity shift to become a business owner. Being a business owner is very different than being self-employed. There's nothing right or wrong about
Mhm.
any of it, but it's a very different identity. So I love that. And I think I'd love to know from your own experience, Michelle, what things have happened for you on your journey that have allowed you to see your identity in a new way? Because I heard something recently that identity takes something like 2 to 3 years to catch up with reality often. You know what I mean? Like you might start being that new version of yourself, but you're not really aware of it, right? So
Right.
how did you start to see yourself or know yourself in the capacity of 50 women are doing this, underneath your umbrella? Like, how did that happen from I was a widow and I was trying to figure out what I'm doing to now 50 women here and, from your mouth to God's ears soon 300 women.
Yeah, I think just taking one step at a time for me. And I think learning to listen. I think at first, when you first start, you're trying to figure things out. At least I was, and I wasn't exactly sure which direction I was going to go. So I think being open minded, learning, being clear about who you are. Something that I was thinking about too is for those who want to do some kind of business and they're not sure where to start, just do a mind map or a mind storm where they just write a lot of things down that they're good at. So I didn't really know I was going to be good at it. I didn't know I was going to be good at gift wrapping it. In the beginning, I wasn't the best. And then I started watching videos. How can I be better? How do I do a Japanese wrap? How do I do this? How do I do that? I listen to leadership constantly. Uh,
Yes.
People over profit. If I always kept that in mind, which I do, and then some of these guys who are more very A-type business leaders like Michael Gerber or Grant Cardone or some of these
Right.
men, listening to what they're saying and taking an honest evaluation of myself. I need to be a little tougher here. I need to be a little stronger here. But it has evolved. And so I want to hear what the people that are with me are saying. I want to know who they are. I want to know what their thoughts and feelings are. I want them to know that even though I might be thinking of the vision for Nifty at this point, they might be a few years behind me. How do I get them up to that speed? How can I be a servant leader number one? So if I can be a servant leader and then I have around me servant leaders, there's no stopping us. And that's exactly who we are as a business. And they keep giving me permission to go out and do more of what we're doing here today. And I trust them with everything else. They've also created trust with me, and I've created trust on the reverse. So I think, creating trust, being open, don't compete, be unique. Like
Yes.
just you don't have to compete with a 25-year-old. You just need to compete with yourself. Am I better this year than I was? Yeah, last. Do small things. Do small things well.
Well, and I think there's another piece that I just want to bring that I would like to reflect back to you, we're new friends and just getting to know each other. Your power of listening and your power of presence is very, very strong. And I just want to reflect back that I feel like that's unique in the world. It's one of those things you're not only obviously your life is built on giving, right? You're a generous soul, you're a generous listener. And I think that that's one of those things where there's a consciousness on your part to really take in what's going on around you. And they say the best teachers are often the best students, right? So as you're learning and growing, I'm excited to see what insights you will have. And hopefully this is the beginning of many dates that you and I have. But I
Mhm.
think I'm excited to support you in getting the word out and learning the insights as you learn, from the community members, from the women who are doing their own businesses in Iowa, wherever they are in the country. What are they bringing back to you so you can continually improve and grow gracefully, which is a very feminine way to grow your business and not have to feel like, you know, it's got to be a push. It can really happen organically and gracefully. So I'm excited to see that happen for you.
Okay. Laura,
Yeah.
thank you for the time. This has been great.
Really, really good. All right. Thank you again for being with us. And I'll make sure everybody knows how to get in touch with you. And we'll keep spreading the word.
Are you a limitless woman? This is your personal invitation to learn how you can join our online community, grow through our business school, and play with us at our live events. Go to limitlesswomen.com for all the details. That's limitlesswomen.com. Thanks for joining us.